Hello, my name is Bill Duggar. I'm the Senior Fellow for the International Technology Education Association, otherwise known as ITEA. Previously, I served as director of the ITEA's Technology for All Americans project, in which we develop the standards for technological literacy. Here's a copy of those standards. They are available through ITEA's website, which the URL is given at the bottom of the page. The development of educational standards began in the 1980s in this country. This was a result of some discontent with the quality of public education in the United States. Some people thought that there was a problem with education. Others did not think that there was a problem. So that caused a lot of controversy in the 1980s. The discontent began with the Nation at Risk report, which came out in 1983. From that, a number of other publications and reports came out later in the 1980s. In the late 1980s and in the 1990s, virtually every area in the study of schools developed national standards for what every student should know and be able to do in their subject. The mathematics standards were first. They were produced by the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics in 1989, and they were followed by the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Project 2061 benchmarks in 1993. A little bit later, 3 years later, the National Research Council came out with the National Science Education Standards in 1996. ITEA received funding in 1994 in that time period from the National Science Foundation as well as the National Aeronautics and Space Administration to begin developing the standards for technological literacy. That time period was between 1994 and the year 2005. The Technology for All Americans project had three phases. The first phase was to develop a rationale and structure for the study of technology, so-called R&S, which was developed over a 2-year period from 1994 through 1996. Dr. Bill Havis has included a presentation of the rationale and structure as part of this briefing video series. Phase 2 was to develop standards for technological literacy, STL, in the time period from 1996 to 2002. And then the Phase 3 was to develop companion standards to STL. Those were called Advancing Excellence in Technological Literacy, or AETL. Those were developed from 2000 to 2005. So a big question is, what is technological literacy? Well, ITEA defines it as one's ability to use, manage, evaluate, and understand technology. So that's a fairly large responsibility and a fairly large amount of education that everyone needs. Then who is a technologically literate person? Well, we think that it's one that understands what technology is all about, understands how technology is created, primarily through the invention and innovation and design process, and how to use technology shapes society, and the reverse of that is how society shapes the development of technology. A technologically literate person is comfortable with and objective about the use of technology, neither scared of it or infatuated with it. The vision of the standards for technological literacy is that all students can and should become technologically literate. STL presents an in-depth content for what every child in grades K through 12 should know and be able to do in order to be technologically literate. Some guiding principles behind the development of STL are that they offer a common set of expectations for what students should learn in the study of technology. They are developmentally appropriate, which we spend a lot of time making sure that the kindergarten through grade 2 standards, benchmarks, were much simpler than the high school benchmarks. Continuing on with the guiding principles, the STL provides a basis for developing meaningful, relevant, and articulated curriculum at the local, state, and provincial levels. I'd like to note that STL is not a curriculum. It provides the content or the ingredients that go into the curriculum as to what should be taught. STL promotes content connections with other fields of study in grades K through 12, such as science, mathematics, language arts, social studies, and so forth. STL encourages active and experiential or hands-on learning. So, how are the standards for technological literacy structured? Well, I'd like to start by showing you the table of contents and explaining that. Then I'll get a little bit more in detail as to what the standards are. Here's the chapters in the table of contents. The first deals with preparing students for a technological world. The second deals with an overview of the standards, how the standards were organized and formatted. And then the next 3 or 5 chapters deal with the organizers' categories in which the standards are placed under. And those are the nature of technology, technology and society, design, abilities for a technological world, the design world, and then the final chapter is a call to action to gather help from others in supporting the study of technology and technological literacy. We do have an appendix that has a number of references that are valuable to the reader. So let's take these 5 major categories and flesh them out and tell you the standards that fall out under them. The first one is the nature of technology, and under there are 3 standards. The first deals with what is the scope of technology, basically what technology is, how it compares with science, and how it compares with other areas. Next is the core principles of technology, those things that tend to permeate all technologies. And the third standard deals with technological relationships, especially among technologies, for example, medical technologies and communications technologies, and technological relationships with other fields of study. That technology interacts with science and mathematics, for example. The next category has 4 standards under it, and the category is technology and society. The first standard addresses technology's effects on society. Next deals with technology's effects on the environment. The third standard under this deals with people's sharing technological development. And the last one deals with the evolution and history of technology. These are very valuable in integrating the study of technology, for example, with social studies. Third category is titled technological design. Design is as crucial to the study of technology as literacy is to the study of science and numeracy is to the study of mathematics. There are 3 standards that are placed under technological design. Those are the attributes of design, what design is all about. Next is engineering design, which is a more specific type of design. And the third standard deals with the methods to solve other types of design problems. The fourth category addresses abilities for a technological world. That's the doing part. The previous ones were the knowing part. There are 3 standards under this category. First is, how do you apply the design processes for students? How can students use and maintain products and systems that are technological? And then finally, how students can assess the impacts of products and systems on their individuals, their society, and the environment. The last and largest category is called the design world. There are 7 standards under this category. First deals with medical technologies, a very, very large and powerful technology today. Second is agriculture and related biotechnologies, an emerging one with biotechnology, but agriculture has been a technology for at least 12,000 years. The third is energy and power technology, which is very, very vital today with the increased price of petroleum and the cost of producing energy and power. The next deals with information and communications technology. Many people think that technology is just computers. Of course, this is a very important one, and computers and the internet fall out under information and communications technology. we view it as one of the 7 major standards. The next one is transportation technology. The next to the last one is manufacturing technology, and then finally construction technologies. So all of the major technologies fall under these. There may be some others that come into other categories, but we, in working with the National Academy of Engineering, came up with these 7 major organizers for technology. Under each standard, there are benchmarks that provide more detail and assist the student at various grade levels to meet or exceed the standard. A sample benchmark under a standard is given for your understanding. For example, Standard 11 is students will develop abilities to apply the design process. And the benchmark for grades kindergarten through 2 for Standard 11 is the students will build or construct an object using the design process. So you can see how the benchmark provides more detail to that given standard. STL has an executive summary. You can go to ITEA's email address and order one. You can also view the executive summary on the ITEA website, and there's the URL that you can go to get a look at it. Next is there are curriculum and standard specialists that are available to you to give workshops and presentations. ITEA provides these, and we have had over 80 presentations across this country as well as worldwide in the last 4 years. Again, you may use ITEA's website or email address there to schedule a workshop or presentation. Final slide is where are we now? Well, this matrix was developed by Roger Bybee, who was the director of the National Science Education Standards and currently is Executive Director of Biological Systems Curriculum Studies, BSCS. It provides a perspective of where you go through in terms of developing and implementing standards. The first step that he says is that you must, once you get the standards developed, you must disseminate them, or developing awareness of those standards. Another way of saying that is getting the work out. The second is interpretation of those standards. The goal there is to increase the understanding and support from education as well as the community for getting the idea out. The third is implementation. The goal is changing policies, programs, and practices. The byline there is getting the job done. The fourth is evaluation. That's monitoring and adjusting and improving those policies, programs, and practices. The byline there is getting it right. We have done, over the last few years, a lot of work in step number 1 and step number 2, so I would say that that's ongoing. But most certainly, right now, ITEA is working probably more in the implementation of the standards and the evaluation of the standards. Finally is the number 5, revision. The goal of that is to improve the purpose and influence of the standards and to revise the standards and do it all over again. All standards are very dynamic. A good example is the math standards that were developed in 1989 were revised in 2000. So our standards will need revision probably in the next 5 to 8 years. It's been my pleasure giving you an orientation to the standards for technological literacy. I encourage you to contact ITEA and find out more about them and to get you copies. Make sure that you read them and gain an understanding of them. Thank you.